Okay, so today we're going back to nodes and we're going to actually create a digital asset. The initial thought of all this when I looked at a tutorial by Mikhail Sedov, who did some very interesting stuff with basically a noise animation using not pure C nodes, but using nodes in terms of, well, I'll show you. So this is where we kind of left off. Now, since what I did do after the tutorial on the building is I figured out how to bring in my own object. And basically there is an import. Let's see. This is an object import item. Let's see if I can find that in the node commander. So classic object import is the node right here. And now one thing you can do here is click on this and say all. And let's see, it's not going to show you much more until you bring in your object. So you can just bring in an object like this and update parameter node. That's important because that'll show you the stuff that you didn't have before. So let's see if I can get more out of this. Add output all. So you can see that it should have an op somewhere in here. There's a geometry. That's interesting. Let's see if these are actually classic object and classic object import. So if you do that, that's how you get this one. Okay. So this is another way of doing it, but it's going to give you a geometry, which is not a big deal. We're going to talk about how to deal with that. But what I did is I had my special cube that was made to look like a window. I used a material op, and the material op is just simply, if you can look at it, let's see if I'm seeing anything. So you can just throw material in there, and you can see we have a brick material. Now again, how we did this is we combined our item we wanted put in this matrix and then made this matrix with a width and height. And that was the one we had looked at in the past. Well, I'm going to close this because this thing is getting very fussy memory-wise. So let's look at the thing I put together based on Mr. Sedov's video. Let's see. I think this is the one. Yes. Now I want to show you one thing about this is look how fast it is. Reason for that is he is not extruding anything. He has object groups that go into a spline mask, which is sort of sort of a Boolean for splines. But what it lets you do is add a redshift object and hair, which the redshift object, in this case, I think it's this one here. This one? Yeah, you can make hair strands. And this is a hair material, so you can take a look at that. See if we can. And you have Laura's hair. I just missed it. Now, they give you, I'm not 100%, certain on how this works, because what they did do is when you create a default hair material, it kind of acts like, okay, I should have an octane, cinema hair. So I found it easier to just give it my own parameters here. Very, very simple. In this case, I did not spend really any time trying to figure out how this hair material worked. That's a battle for another day here. But when you render it, you can then render this and it'll actually show it. And I created 2 object groups, and theoretically you should be able to put the object groups under one spline mask, I would think, but I'm not 100% certain on that. And you can see it renders. So this is basically what I took from that tutorial. Okay, so this was a little experiment I did with using the twist and playing with materials and playing with moving this. Like this one, you can move. You see the matrix op will change. It's sort of like a transform. The geometry op takes the geometry and turns an actual scene object, something that you can actually display. You can't display just a geometry. You need to make it an operator, and that's what this geometry op does. And in this case, we're taking the cube, we're putting a transform to it as well. We're giving it a material, which in this case is a wood, and then we're putting it out. Now then we take it again, turning it into an operator, an object that essentially the Cinnamon understands, and then we're using an effector on it, which is a twist effector. You can see this one here, it's all twisted. And you can adjust the amount of twistiness by adjusting. You can see here we create a matrix that we're going to plug in here. And this is, because this wants a matrix as opposed to an operator. This says transform, do a transform on the object. This says, this is what's going to control the effector. So for example, if you go into the twist, let's see, here's our effector. We have various things now. Transition mode to mesh, because we want to mesh out there. And we plug in this. This is the thing that's actually controlling how twisty it is and so on. And we can also move it up and down, I believe. Move things around so you can get this kind of an effect. So this is how you apply an effector in the scene node scenario. So this was another experiment I did. Making a object from it, a digital object, which is this noise group. Now, in this case, what this does is you can see it's going to be a little bit slower. And I'm going to show you the noise group is what does all the animation and the id in that operator group in the previous example like this. And you can see. So let's look at this. You can see it's a little bit slower, but actually for something like this, it was only about 2 minutes per page for frame render time. Now let's look at this. This is just the regular group, I believe. And so the first thing is you want to, this is where you're going to have your inputs to this object. And all you do if you want an input, let's say you want to add noise type, you just bring it out here and it says add new input. And now you have noise type as an input. Very simple. Now in this case, we're going to take a geometry. Again, this is very slow. We're going to take a geometry, subdivide it, get the lines, get the splines, if you will, and turn it into something that Cinema understands. Again, we're going to do this spline tessellation, which talks about how many points. So it, now, here's the key. You extrude the line, and now you have the item. Now you can apply the noise selection, which again, you adjust per frame based on the multiplier. What it's going to do is it's going to select randomly based on the noise. It's going to select items in this geometry, polygons, I think, and yeah, polygons. That's what it's set. It's going to delete those, and then it's going to combine it with the input type, which is going to control, the input actually controls the location. And then it's going to put those together, your location, your transform, and it's going to output. So if you look at it in scene nodes, you see I have a cube. In this case, I didn't transform. In this case, I did. So this is where I'm telling it, yeah, I want you up. I want to move you around a little bit. So theoretically, this should, again, it is being very slow. But that's the concept. And what we do then, when we want to make this an actual object, is we select it, we go assets, and then convert it to an asset. Now I'm going to cancel this over. Well, we can give it a different name. Noise group, new. And then you can tell where you want to put it. So you can go here, and let's say I put it in, what is it? Into nodes, and I can put it in geometry utility, geometry modifier, geometry generator is what they, in the example that I saw similar to this, they put it in the generator. So we can put it there. Doesn't matter. We have this one in the utilities. You put one that makes sense. And you say okay. And now you have it. And what you can do, and I think I'm going to save this as incremental before I close it. Save incremental really helps. Plus, you always want to be backing and let it make backups. And then you can always clean up, get rid of the old stuff yourself. later on. And I am going to close that. And now we got a scene root here. So now let's go to nodes commander, and we're going to do noise. And we have noise group 2. We also have noise group new. So let's take this that we just made. We're going to plug it in here. What? We don't see anything yet. I'm going to show you some other stuff too. So now we need some kind of object. So node commander, let's see, let's do polygon. And we can just plug it on in here. And now, this is something. Let me also do a matrix. Nodes command a matrix op. And now, let's say we want this higher. Let's see what we got here. And you see, now, what I didn't mention before is, and by the way, if you look at noise group, you can see, you can use it, or you can actually adjust it yourself, I think. Now, the noise type, you can give it, or you can, because it's here, you can set it here and make it something else. Now, this is something I didn't mention. You noticed in the previous example, one of them had was more like dots and things, and one was more solid. That's these caps. So if you get rid of these caps, you should get more of a... Now, it doesn't look like much, because one thing we didn't do with this polygon is, let's make this, if it lets me, let's give this a number like 32, and then you will definitely see more here. So you can change the noise type, the start and end caps, and it will. So now you have this object here that you can use to make these kinds of sci-fi. There we go. I think that's a little high. I think we want it more like 32. But you can see now you're getting a different type of animation. And I think because we have this up so high is why we're getting look more solid. Okay, we've set this to 32, which is more like it. And we turned off, we do not have the start and end caps on. And you'll see what we get. So you can see it gives you a different kind of sci-fi kind of look. And again, we could, the various things we can change. So this allows you to just put in a polygon, generate a sci-fi type op. Now, I don't believe, now this, what normally happens here is if you don't if you don't make it specify here, it's going to be whatever it is in the default. So in order to see this, what you have to do is you got to do the assets, edit asset. And what you can do, because I think we should add to this. Okay. This does not contain the material. That's right. I did it after. No material in here. So what we'd want to do, if we wanted a material, is take our material op and we're going to take this up here. And now I'm going to change the renderer to Redshift. And what I'm going to do is go in here so I don't get that error and tell it. I don't know why it doesn't pick it up. I haven't looked too hard at that yet. Okay, so now we have a material op. And make it easy, I'm going to go to the Grayscale Gorilla Plus library and look for some cool material. Now, of course, the Grayscale Gorilla materials are open, so you can go in and let's see. You can also tell it, I just want Redshift because that's the renderer we're using. And we can look at something that we think might look nice. Chromium, maybe? Click on our material op, put it right there. And we don't have any selection. So we have a chromium. Now let's look at, see what we got here. Any light, so let's stop that. Let's just give it a simple dome light. Not very dramatic, but it will give us at least some light. Probably want to turn the intensity down a little bit. And now let's see what we got. And you can see we've got this little chromium kind of thing. It's kind of sci-fi. So you can see how valuable these digital assets that you can make, how you can make digital assets in Cinema now, and how valuable they could be. And I can generate all kinds of different things like this just with this thing I made. And this is a very simple one. But if I wanted, but of course we can make very sophisticated ones. One thing I want to make is a building generator with it. Should not be that hard. You have it specify, we know how to specify a wall. We did that. You just specify 4 walls and you have the appropriate matrix transforms to put it in the right spot, and you have a building, and then you just maybe can, replace the blocks, the windows, or you can make floors however you want to do it. So it would not be that hard to make sort of a version of a building generator. It probably won't be, it would be a fair amount of work to make it as sophisticated as the Houdini one that they provide, because obviously they spent a whole lot of time working on this thing. They also have a little bit of a language in there, right, where you can say, if it's in brackets, so it has to address that. So that would be a little harder. You might be able to do something like that with Python, which could be interesting. I have not looked too hard at the Python library for cinema. I know that there are Python nodes. Trying to see. It may be in the effectors or the deformers. There's some place where you can make like a Python uh, item. Let's see. I know it's somewhere. Probably. No, it may be in the fields. Formula field, Python field. So there's this Python field where you can use their Python API to essentially do whatever the heck you want to do. As you know, Python is a very powerful language, which is used everywhere from uh, talking to electronics to data science. So, anyway, that's a bit off topic, but hopefully you have a better understanding of the scene nodes and how they work and how you can create different things, how you can put in noises and deformers and different things in your scene. So you take a polygon and then you can do what you need to do with it. Again, there's the geometry op if you need to convert it to something that cinema is knows how to display, and ultimately that's what you put it out as an operator, which has all the information it needs. And if you look here, one other thing, we talked about this last time, UV data inspector. So you can look here and see, you can look here and you can see what's going in. This is the object that's going in there. It's a data dictionary. So it has some help. The other thing that to see where things are really, you can see where all the work's done. Pretty much everything here. And within this, well, we'd have to edit asset. It doesn't let you enable the heat map in. So you want to get that sorted before you turn it into an actual asset. But anyway, hopefully this has been helpful, and hopefully you have a better understanding now of nodes and their power. Basically, what this does is it takes Espresso and takes it a little bit to the next level. This is the direction cinema's going, and we'll see how it keeps getting better and better. I think there is still an issue with speed. If someone sees something I'm blatantly doing wrong here in terms of getting things to work, then please let me know. But, I've noticed it is not generally as, you can have responsiveness issues when you're using C nodes that I don't see normally in cinema. But the other thing is, when you have some kind of animation, you do want to cache it. And I've not looked at caching yet. I think if this is going to be the primary way to create things, then some kind of caching will be in order. But again, right now it can be used and can do some really cool things. We saw how it can be used kind of as a hybrid, where you can combine it, create a object, a generator, an object group or a geometry group, I forget what it was called, and then treat it like any other object as you would in cinema, and stick it, as children in this case of a uh, spline operator, a spline wrap, I think is what it was, and get results that way. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I will speak to you next time. Take care.